he might remind you of Lionel Messi with the way he glides. He might remind you of Wayne Rooney with how he kind of makes this instant impact, how unfazed he is by playing amongst grown adults. But to achieve what they achieved isn't just about his ability. It's about everything around him. It also requires lots and lots of stuff to go for you as well that you can't control.
Arsenal overcome Everton at the last. 16-year-old Max Dowman redefines looks maxing. For unto us a child star is born, at levels only known to Hayley Joe Osment, Lindsay Lohan or Rupert Grint. Tottenham find their slither of life at Dr. Liverpool. Richarlison scoring at Anfield, proof that spite is the rocket fuel of human motivation. And Liam Rossini's Chelsea announced their new global brand as Weird Huddle FC on a weekend in which the quality of the football was good, but the quality of the football memes was truly great, which is why I love the game. And to make it all make sense, it's my friend in pod, the Crown Prince of Harrogate, the Richarlison of words. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
Of all the intros you've given me, Roger, I'm not having the Richarlison of anything.
I'm not having. Oh my God, I'd bite your arm off to be genuinely half the Richarlison of anything. But so much football to break down. Meme huddles don't discuss themselves, Raw. Want to give huge thanks to Bank of America, official bank of US soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting the Men in Blazers media network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? So let's dive straight in, returning hot tub time machine style to yesterday. Liverpool 1, Tottenham Hotspur 1. We cry or we fight, said Igor Tudor before this one. It's not just about football, is it, Igor? It's life. But he said it about his Spurs team. Remember, 9th richest in the world. We'd said they were too big to go down, but they seem to be in free fall. 11 straight games without a win, ravaged by 13 injuries and absences. Igor Tudor looking really like a manager without authority. Possibly the worst rescue mission since Scatman Carruthers at the end of The Shining. We forget, man went all the way to save the day at the hotel and just got an axe in the head almost immediately upon arrival. Tudor's somehow been worse than that to watch. Rumours abounded about who would replace him. Asked before the game about Spurs' dismal record at Anfield. I think one win in, 31 games? He said, every stadium is difficult for us. I mean, inspirational words, Rule.
Yeah, he's sometimes given the impression that he's not that bothered about keeping that position, I would say. He's been happy to shoot from the hip, Rog. Is that a fair way of assessing his approach? You're not really kind of seeing the need to mollycoddle anybody, sugarcoat anything. He just kind of tells it as it is. It's quite refreshing. I'm not sure it's a great long-term employment strategy.
I don't know. He's like the first ever. We talk about like player managers. He's the first pundit manager. He's almost like punditing his own team from the gantry. But he's like meant to be leading them. It's almost like he's heard about these huge polystyrene payoff checks that fired managers get in the Premier League, and he wants his now.
Yeah, and certainly until he got to Anfield, Rog, it looked like it was going to be pretty quickly forthcoming, because ever since that, well, to be honest, ever since he arrived, but particularly since the 5-2 defeat to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, Tudor has looked like his time is basically up, that Spurs had decided on a kind of organisational level that maybe he wasn't the right guy, that the players weren't particularly impressed, that they were thinking, right, we will give him the game at Anfield, we'll see what happens, we expect to lose, and then we'll work out where we go next. You know, maybe he gets Atletico Madrid the second leg, and after that we'll go and find another interim to take over from the interim. That, I think, was Spurs' plan. That's what they were expecting. They'd almost written Liverpool off. But then some of us, Rog, did tell you that this game might not pan out like that. And I don't want to be kind of all, I told you so-y, but
I told you so.
I've seen enough of Liverpool to know how the story goes.
By the way, the Tudor arc has been fascinating. His first press conference, every Spurs fan I knew, I said, I just love his straight talking. And at this point, we're all like, stop the straight talking, do some of the managing stuff. Watching him at Spurs, I keep thinking that classic Ange Postecoglou quote, every time I see the light at the end of the tunnel, turns out to be an oncoming train. Spurs, as I said, 13 players out, including Romero, head injury, Van der Ven suspended. They're just a 7-man bench for this one. I think 3 were tweens with no experience. 2 were goalkeepers. This was not a bench, it seemed. almost like a death rattle. Felt like football played without a safety net when Tottenham took the field, and they began not crying. That was the good news. They had a beater fight. 19-year-old raw Brazilian Sousa sending a stinging, swerving drive at Alisson in the early exchanges. But then Alexis McAllister drove through the gut. Let's just say he was given a leg to fall over. 18 minutes in, free kick in Dom Szoboszlai territory. So no one was surprised when the Hungarian slapped the ball over the wall, apart from Vicario. The goalkeeper had been dropped for dread keeper Kinski against Atletico, and the Italian made a, let's say, a limp-wristed effort to swat it away as it went right through him into the net. 4th direct free kick of the season in the Premier League for Dom. Quarter of the 16 scored in this campaign have come off his foot. Raw. Kinski, Vicario, you say potato, I say potato. They're both unreliable keepers, no matter how you say it.
Yeah, I mean, Vicario should have saved the free kick. It's not quite as good as it maybe looked the first time. He gets a good hand on it, and it should be enough to turn it away. But then I suppose one thing Tudor has done, one accusation you can make of him during his time at Tottenham, he's done really well to undermine both of his goalkeepers. So it's maybe not a massive surprise that Vicario's confidence shouldn't be particularly high.
Yep, and last 22 times Spurs had conceded first, they hadn't come back to win. That's kind of the context that we expected. And they did initially respond by dropping deep, soaking up what felt like was going to be a pummeling. Vicario pushed a Gakpo drive onto a post. Young Rio Ingamoa, in his first Premier League start, at last began to run at that Spurs backline. I say with mischief and delight and a fearlessness. When you watch that over and over and over, watching Rio pick up the ball and do what we like to categorise, well, not we, you, as Liverpool things. If you're a Liverpool fan, because I can't put myself into that headspace, do you savour every single take on? Or are you starting to get furious and frustrated that a 17-year-old, first start kid was your only barnstorming performer by your quite sensational Hungarian who's been, for some reason, exiled to play right back out of his position where he can really influence the game?
Yeah, I think the kind of rise of Undramoa is really illustrative of where Liverpool are now, because I think every time he's played, someone somewhere has given him man of the match, either Liverpool's man of the match or the overall player of the match. And I'm not sure his actual performances really warrant that. It feels a little bit like we're saying, well, he's 17, he's showing, spirit and ambition and daring and all that stuff. I'm not sure in terms of affecting the game that's really warranted. But the reason he's catching the eye so much is not just because he's clearly extremely talented. It's because he's doing stuff that nobody else is trying. He's the only player when he's on the pitch who seems to have any sort of confidence, any kind of sense of the goal is that way, I will go towards it. He's the only player who tries to take people on. He's definitely the only player who gets past people. And when you see him play, there's obviously excitement as a fan for what might be to come, but there's also a real sense of this is what it should look like, this is what it should feel like. Why, when he's not on the pitch, is nobody else even trying any of this? Yeah,
and that is the reason the second half just became a tough watch. Liverpool just felt more and more unsyncopated. It's almost like they were playing midfield is lava for long stretches of that game. McAllister, every week, just feels like he's trying to get a few more miles out of a set of ball tyres. His drop-off has been remarkable to witness. And Anfield became a nerve-filled place. And by the way, if I'm a Spurs fan, and I always say this as an Everton fan, I feel I see traits in Spurs that I recognise from my own love. I do believe, in a way, Spurs are the Everton of the South. I really do relate to them. I take a positive from this team who seemed dead on the operating table, that they had more than a pulse. They had fight down the stretch. The maligned Xavi Simons and Randall Kolo-Muani added real thrust when they came on. Spurs up the intensity. They wouldn't go gentle out into that dark night. I think Alisson had 6 saves most this season. Spurs had more shots on target than the Reds. Honestly, and you'll have to explain this from a Liverpool POV before we get into the Spurs reality, it was hard to tell if you dropped down and were a neutral, and you were told one of these teams was getting relegated and was in 16th place, you would have had a hard time working out which was which.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a lot of friends and in the build-up to the game, because as I did with you, Rog, I was sort of saying, look, I don't think this is a walkover for Liverpool. I don't think Spurs will get pummeled at Anfield. And they were sort of saying, well, you're being ridiculous. And my response to that was, Liverpool are really bad. They are a bad team to watch. They don't create chances. The ones that they do make, they don't score. They never score from open play anymore. The game plan appears to be, can we score from a corner? And if we can't score from a corner, can Szoboszlai put one in from 30 yards? And at the same time, they concede plenty of chances. They're soft, they're open, they're easy to play against. A lot of people said to me, well, yeah, but have you seen Spurs? And I take that point completely. But I'm not sure the difference in performances is that great. The difference in results, obviously, is substantial, and Liverpool are kind of chasing the Champions League and Spurs are battling relegation. The points difference between those two things is not enormous, to be perfectly honest. But in terms of the way they're playing games, every Liverpool game, every Spurs game this season has been a toss-up. It's come down to a bounce of the ball, to a set piece, to a shot going in or a shot hitting the post or whatever it is. Liverpool sometimes win games by 1 goal, they sometimes lose games by 1 goal. Spurs, often, it's the same. It's just that the balance has swung against Spurs far more often than it's swung against Liverpool. I don't think there's a vast amount between them. And as you say, Spurs had a threat throughout the game. But in that second half, once they realised that Liverpool, A, hadn't, and B, couldn't put them to bed, Spurs, you could tell, thought there's a late equaliser for us here, if not more.
Yeah, we knew Liverpool had not kept a clean sheet at home since New Year's Day. And we also knew the 90 minutes onwards in Liverpool games is a little bit like Cinemax after dark. You never know exactly what's going to happen. So it was almost less a surprise that this happened than if it had not. Vicario smashed the ball forward. Andy Robertson got lost under it. Cullen Warney smashed through, past him, squared, and God bless Richarlison, a man who almost lives to score at Anfield, scuffed it past Alisson, then struck a pose in front of the Kop. Personally, I did love that it was Richie. I do adore him. 6th goal against the Reds, 5th at Anfield. Man lives to wield that dagger in those moments. And almost humanly as incredible as him scoring, Raw, was that he resisted the urge to rip his shirt off. He's learning.
He's getting smarter, Rog. He's getting smarter. No, he's always been a thorn in Liverpool's side. And I think as much as he's kind of the pantomime villain at Anfield, I think there's probably respect for him, that he does genuinely seem to hate Liverpool. And that is something that I think lots of people can get on board with and admire about him. If not in the moment, then certainly kind of in the round.
I love the images of the travelling Spurs fans in a moment, aghast, delighted, shocked. What's that thing called that football can give you? A smile? Is it joy? This was more than a goal. It really was. It was as if they ripped out the defibrillators. I mean, this was oxygen. This goal was life itself. Don't like to be hyperbolic, but it was that massive. Spurs still to win a game in 2026, but at least that run of 6 straight defeats all comps is over. Now Spurs, 1 big boy point and goal difference ahead of West Ham and Nottingham Forest. Forest, who Spurs play next week in a massive, epic clash of civilizations. What do you take from this if you're a Spurs fan? Can you say, on that rust of a season, there are green shoots of football, of squad fight. I wouldn't pass it off exactly as belief yet, not exactly confidence, but the beginnings of a pride in professionalism, Raw. Whatever it takes is 1 or 2 steps up from utterly shambolic.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to start kind of relitigating Igor Tudor's Spurs reign based on one result, because I think that's the tendency, isn't it? Is to be like, well, they got a point at Anfield and they played pretty well, so maybe the players are responding to his methods. I don't think that's true. Johnny Blaine, who's a Spurs fan, a statistician over here, did point out that I think that was the furthest Tottenham had run this season was at Anfield, and the second furthest was in the defeat at Fulham, both of which are under Tudor, which does suggest that either the players are working despite him, maybe they're working for him, or I think maybe most likely they're working as they've worked out exactly how dangerous their situation is. And I think if I was a Spurs fan, the main thing I'd take from Anfield is the point. The second thing is that sense that the players now realise that things are pretty hairy and they have to start pulling it out of the bag a little bit, which is great going into that Forest game, because I think that will go a long way to deciding whether Spurs have to really fret through April and May, or whether there's a possibility rather than a probability of being involved in a relegation battle.
Yeah, I mean, God, we are a knee-jerk people, we football fans, so we do announce, Tottenham can either be in free fall or they can be back. Those are the only 2 things, right? So when you hear Igor Tudor post-game say, don't read nothing, don't watch nothing, the future is just imagination, the future don't exist. I mean, if I was a Spurs fan, are those the words of excitement that almost Orwellian that I would want to hear after this point? So you're hinting towards it. Does this admirable, quasi-admirable, important point. I don't want to take that away. Does it save Tudor? He looked on the sideline, I mean, ecstatic. I mean, I imagine him saying to his assistant coaches, "What is this non-loss thing called?" And everyone shouting back, "It's a draw, Igor! It's a draw!" His post-match exchange, I've got to be said, with the Sky interviewer about whether he's the right person. It's on our Instagram if you want to see it. Whether he's the right person to be there. Rebecca Lowe, when they cut back to the studio, she goes, "That was uncomfortable." I mean, it was a draw that felt like a win. But still, Tottenham have gone now 12 Premier League games without victory for the first time since 1935. Raw, would you keep Tudor with no margin for error and 8 games to go?
It's a really difficult call, Rog. I think if he'd lost at Anfield, and certainly if he'd lost badly at Anfield, then that would have been it for Igor Tudor. At some point, again, maybe you let him have the Atletico Madrid second leg. As it stands, I do wonder whether the best thing to do might just be to stick with him, certainly through that Forest game, and then see where you are when you come out the other side of that. If they've beaten Forest, there will then be a little bit of daylight between them and the bottom 4. You might also have leapfrogged Leeds, which would be helpful, just in terms of the bodies between you and that dreaded dotted line. But the big question, I think, has to be, like, who can you replace him with? There was a suggestion before the weekend that they were working on an appointment that might not be temporary, that might be a manager who they can get to lead them into next season. I would guess, if that is right, that would be Roberto De Zerbi, the former Brighton manager who left Marseille a few weeks ago. That's a big call to make at this stage in the season, given where Tottenham are in the table. But then I guess the flip side is that Tudor, in the course of his 5 games in the league, hasn't really done enough to say he's definitely going to get you out of it. You might, if that's the appointment you want to make in the summer, you kind of might as well do it now, because De Zerbi's probably as well placed to get you out of relegation or out of relegation trouble as Tudor is.
But why, if you're De Zerbi, why would you take it and then risk being blamed for the relegation, having to do a season in the Championship?
Doing a season in the Championship is risky. I think in terms of blame, it's late enough now that it wouldn't be De Zerbi's fault.
I love you, but football doesn't work like that, Rule. When he's in the Championship, it will be remembered he's the one that was leading us when we can. I mean, football, if nothing, we do like to unjustly tarnish people's reputation in every degree. I was hoping, I said this on Friday, that Ange Postecoglou would return, a little bit like Steve Carell in the Office finale, just for that late cameo, and it would be delicious. Make it happen, script writers, make it happen. Got to talk very quickly about Liverpool. Booze at full time around Anfield. They won this game last season. God, was it just April? 5-1. We broke that game down with, I mean, it felt like delicious poetry. Everything went right. It was cacophonous joy. An incredibly stark contrast to now. Almost painful, to be honest, to juxtapose the two. And these late goals that they continue to concede, the inability really to professionally close out games with professionalism, with nous, on repeat, not learning their lessons. I think someone totted up that it'd be a point behind City without this self-sabotaging flaw. They remain 5th. And you just saw the faces of the players at the full-time whistle. It was like they'd been slapped across the cheek with a big wet fish, particularly a clearly frustrated Szoboszlai. That's dark. He's got a new contract to sign, and he said post-game, the way we're playing, we'll be lucky to make the Conference League. Liverpool were terrible, and that was a record 8th goal they've conceded after the 90th minute. The play honestly reminds me of what the Russian philosopher Platonov once wrote: "From our ugliness will grow the soul of the world." It is not good, Raw, and it's not good for Arne Slot.
No, so to me, the late goals are not the problem in themselves. The late goals are a symptom of the issue, which is that Liverpool don't create chances. They certainly don't create chances in any great numbers. When they do create chances, they don't score them. They really struggle to score from open play. If you look increasingly the last few weeks, it's been, is there a corner to be won? Is there a Dominic Szoboszlai free kick to score? They seem to lack all sort of kind of imagination and invention and confidence going forward, which means that even when they have the lead, it's always a slender lead. It's always the sort of lead that the opposition will be thinking, let's just keep them at this, and in those last 20 minutes, they have something to lose and we have everything to gain, and let's kind of change the momentum of the game at that point. And that's where those late goals come from. I think for Slot, there were 2 really big things yesterday. One was the booze at the full time, but the other was that I think you could get a ticket. I think Anfield was not sold out long before the game. That's like a concrete thing that will be factored into a decision about his future, that The issue isn't just the results. It's not the fact that Liverpool are 5th in the Premier League or that they're not challenging for the title. It's that you're not really offering people anything that they want to watch. There's nothing that Slot is doing at the moment that makes you think next season, when Isak's not injured, when they've got round this kind of chronically imbalanced squad that for some reason they built for $600 million in the summer, that it will be worth watching. It will work. I can see where they're going. In Jurgen Klopp's kind of first year and a half at Liverpool, there were loads of really frustrating results where they dropped stupid points, but people could see if this works, it will be great. Whereas with Slot now, all the credit that he got for winning the title in his first year, which obviously is an incredible achievement, that has been burnt through, not because they keep dropping points, but because they're playing so poorly. I really think that as things stand late March, he needs to finish this season incredibly well in terms of both results and performances. Probably performances more even than the results, to be honest, to retain the faith of the fan base. The club hierarchy itself is maybe different. I still think it's more likely than not that he's there next season. But unless he can show the fans something to get excited about for August, for September, as soon as they have any sort of setback next year, there will be no faith, no credit left, and that is a real problem for Liverpool.
That's the agony. Can you show that this is a season of transition without any real indicators of progress? And can you keep a manager on when you know that he's on that short a hook, that a couple of weeks into the season, if there is none of that P word progress, forward motion, you are going to have to make that replacement. It's an incredibly agonising call, particularly fascinating if Liverpool do go on and win the FA Cup, because symbolically that's quite a good haul from the first 2 seasons in English football. I would bite your arm off for anything resembling that, a league title and an FA Cup run. But that is football. There's the rational and there's the emotional, and that statistic that you could get a ticket is as damning as anything. Something we need to touch on quickly, something that truly delights and excites me. A few days ago, regular listeners will know we unveiled our new logo for the wider Men in Blazers media network. But there's more. Raw. We also have a new logo for this show, the Men in Blazers podcast, inspired by classic football crests, also the tradition of American mascots that I adore. We have our new pup, Raw, topped with a football and pie hat that I'd honestly bite your arm off. World's better with football pie hats. World needs more football pie hats. What we hoped was it would put a little bit of joy and good vibe out into the world when it needs it, because simply I think we could all do with a bit of optimism these days. Do hope our football-loving hound offers you a slither of elation every time you see it. We tried to think what will bring joy, and then we realised Mikel Arteta knew what he was doing with Win the Dog rule.
People like dogs, Rog. That's just it. You're happy when you see a dog. You like seeing a dog. It lifts your mood. Sometimes when I see my dog, I'm quite cross. But other than that, generally, I like seeing dogs. Other people's dogs that I don't have to look after in particular. What is this dog called?
We don't know. And listeners, GFOPs, email us, meninblazers@gmail.com. If you can name our gorgeous, newly adopted dog, give it a name. We will send you the very first Men in Blazers podcast patch, hot off the press. Send us your names now. Raw, if only dogs could run for politics, I think the world would be a better place.
I think there'd be a lot of issues over territoriality and food, if I'm honest.
You think more of a... Martin Scorsese, my dog, would run on a platform of more scraps given to dogs in between meals. By the way, I'd vote for that.
It's a sound policy.
Yeah, God bless. Sanity. And talking about needing sanity, Arsenal, your league leaders, 2. Everton Football Club, 0. Didn't we almost have it all? Mikel Arteta versus his football dad, David Moyes. Bastard Vader versus Glaswegian Obi-Wan Kenobi. Don't think about that too hard. Arsenal handed a chance to go 10 points clear before City took the field against an Everton who admittedly have been road warriors of late. Did this really happen? We'd won 4 of our last 6 away games from the off. Our tactical approach was like that Roman army. Is it testudo, where they lift up their heavy shields, block off the top and the back, and just lock together? We didn't have Tarkowski. We didn't have beautiful Jared Brantwaite, both out. So we went full on Legionnaire. Arsenal set up camp in our final third. I think they had 80% possession in the early exchanges. But then when Everton did whip forward, we'll let history remember, It was like rope-a-dope in blue. First, Ilian Dye span off timber, whipped a stunning ball in that Raya flapped only to the feet of, oh my God, Dwight McNeil. He had the whole goal at his mercy. He rifles this shot. Raya was nowhere near it. Didn't quite understand in the fog of war what happened. But then in the replay, it was clear. Yes, God bless Dwight. He did shoot on goal. But as the ball ricocheted away, it came off. I don't know what you'd call it. What beautiful Calafiori did. It was like he capoeiraed it raw. It was like crouching tiger, hidden scorpion kick. It was, I mean, if there was a Ballon d'Or for defensive block, this would get it.
Is it not a ballet move?
You have to ask Chalamet. I bet you he's gone deep on the ballet this past 7 days.
I think it's an arabesque. I think that's what Riccardo Calafiori did. It was a perfectly executed, like mixed arabesque with downward facing dog from yoga. I think there was those two things combined.
It was instinctually stunning, Ru.
Yeah, I don't know whether. I mean, he obviously meant to do it. I don't know whether he did it more out of kind of, I've got to try and get some part of my body onto this ball rather than I bet this will work. But both are very Arsenal at the moment, and it shows you. You know, you're in the first half of a game, and you've got your left back. Who, I mean, a lot of players in that position would be like, well, there's not this one's on the goalie. There's not much I can do here. But Arsenal do have that level of kind of bit between their teeth, knife in the teeth, commitment just to the art of defending, and that's kind of what saved them from. Dwight McNeil.
Oh, don't do him like that. I'll get back to Dwight in 1 second. I just realised listening to you, speaking, there was reading about police officers who talk when you are about to be shot dead. There's a human instinct to just put anything you can do between yourself and the bullet. Like if you have old phone book handy, you'll lift that up. If you've got like a bottle of Coke or whatever. People have even held up pieces of paper, like magical pieces of paper, as if that thin shield is going to protect them from what is incoming. That's that level of like fear, of instinct, of fight or flight. That's what has been drilled, instilled, inculcated into this Arsenal backline. We've had them all on this season, and listening to Saliba in particular, just like that hunger for the desperate hunger for clean sheets. I think that's what we saw then, and it was, I've got to tell you, it was instinctually stunning as much as everything else that came. That was humanly remarkable. And 1 minute, yes, I'll admit, we were shouting at the television, some of us, Dwight McNeil, you are terrible at football. But like 20 seconds later, he slalomed in on goal and unleashed a poem of a shot that hit the post. These words left my lips 20 seconds after I'd like said the exact opposite. Dwight McNeil, you orgasmic beauty. Football does that to you, right?
It does, that sort of switch. To be honest, the first shot from McNeil, he kind of does everything right. He can't really. I guess a player of the utmost quality might pause there and just slip it into the other corner. But 99% of players, even extremely good players, are doing what McNeil does. They get the ball down, they hit it, and you're hoping that pace will take it past the keeper. And I think it probably would have done had a very well sculpted Italian leg not appeared from nowhere.
Don't take away my reckless, unjust hate. It's all I've got, Ro. I mean, it's all I've got.
But the one against the post was magnificent. The one against the post was magnificent.
Let history remember, because we forget Everton did have the best first half chances. It was really just a combo of unreal defending, the post, and David Raya that kept us out.
Yeah, they were excellent in that first half, and Everton turned it into the game that I guess maybe a lot of us thought it might be, where Arsenal don't blow teams away. They're not built like Guardiola's kind of 2018 Manchester City. And Everton were well organised, they were well drilled, they denied space, they looked dangerous on the counter-attack. It was well balanced, it was quite fraught, and it got very, very nervous, because for every game for Arsenal this season, there is a massive psychological test.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that second half. Arsenal needed somehow to cut Everton open. Ødegaard out injured. It was very missionary position, laborious football. I think you called it last week, meat wall ball, which I just love. We should get that printed on a T-shirt. Martinelli and Gyökeres flung on at the hour mark. And you could tell actually by the faces on the Everton bench, Moyes and his coaches believed that they had a plan and it was working. Michael Keane flicked a header wide, and you saw the symbol of Arsenal frustration was that they had 12 shots from outside the box, 5 more than any other Premier League game. Eze had 6 alone. Everton was so very good. They were organised. They were disciplined. Arsenal were rattled. You could tell, Raw, the Emirates was just the sound for long parts of that second half of 60,000 sphincters tightening.
Well, yeah, because you had City playing afterwards, a game against the team in the bottom 3 at the start of play, I think. So you'd have expected City to win that. And it does, for all that, to neutrals, Rog, Arsenal look like they've got a really healthy lead at the top of the table. But to Arsenal fans, that will not feel like very many. It will feel like, well, if we don't win here and City do win and then they beat us at the Etihad and win their game in hand, then we're suddenly not top anymore. So as the clock starts to tick and they haven't scored, and also to an extent haven't really looked like scoring, they get understandably very, very twitchy.
Yeah, City, with a draw in this game, would have been masters of their own fate. That was the reality. You saw it. Arteta took his coat off like he wanted to substitute himself in. There was a real mania gripping the Arsenal. And then, 74th minute, 6-year-old Max Dowman flung on. First time back in the Premier League since August to unfurl his teenage kicks. And then it happened. The substitutes click. I do want to go on the record. If you are in the Men in Blazers Discord, I did write, I think about 15 minutes out, that I couldn't see any other result than an Everton defeat. I mean, that is Moyes' ball, both, especially in his first tenure, a little bit in his second. We do Valiance really well. We do drop deeper and deeper. There is a fatigue that kicks in. It's like a trope. The late last, conceding late. Like, I felt it. I smelt it long before. But what happened was really a moment cut from the memory of 100 other dreaded times I've seen us concede in agonising ways. It was baby Dowman who whipped in the stunning cross like a young Paul Skeens. Poor Pickford, had to be him. So often our hero. I mean, we can't have nice things. We have to lambast them. He didn't know whether to stay or go, flapped at it, kind of palmed it only towards Hincapié, who probed it across. I think he groined it technically across the line for Gyökeres to tap in to an empty goal. It was like a Bam Adebayo layup late in slop time. 16th of the season for him. Cue Bay mask, cue release, cue ecstasy, really.
Yeah, and that sense of relief, that's what that is the sense that they'd been plugging away, they'd needed that goal, and finally, in not exactly spectacular style, it had arrived. I think there was a great piece in The Guardian over the weekend about Gyökeres and how he's not necessarily the sort of player that has been bought to score 2 in the, to go to the Etihad and score twice against Man City, or to get a hat-trick at Anfield, or whatever it might be. He is the player you play when you need to break down a team that is defending really deep. You need someone with physical presence, with that kind of instinct in the box to snaffle one of the sort of semi-chances away. And to be honest, I think Gyökeres has filled that role pretty well for Arsenal this season. He's not been a £70 million, $100 million striker in the way we think that sort of price tag should play out. He's not a spectacular talent. He's not going to lift you off your seat necessarily. But when he's been called on, he's done pretty well, Gyökeres, for a first season in the Premier League. And I don't know whether that means he's got the right to have his own celebration. I feel like that's a bit premature. But he has contributed to Arsenal this year.
I keep going back to my interview with Mikel Arteta before this season, where we talked about Gyökeres, and you can go back and see there was more expected. There was a feeling he was going to maul defenders when he was in one-on-ones, just physically, with his pace and power, kind of bully his way through. But he was also, brought in to score crap goals, scuff goals, goals like this, massive goals in this moment. And in that interview, I did actually ask Arteta about Max Dowman, and he said, it is rare to see a player who glides like he does. That is foreshadowing, because there would be more. My God, there would be more. At last, Everton won a corner, up push Pickford. Again, the Emirates was nervy. Everton fans were on the edge of their seat. This was our moment. We had a long throw. We had a corner. This was pressure. Could we do it? But then the corner was cleared. The hunted became the hunters. It dropped to Max Dowman, 16 years and 73 days. Younger, as Arsenal gleefully announced after the game, than 4 of the Arsenal ball boys, which is just amazing. And he charged downfield. It's like watching in the NFL a pick six from your own end zone. God, God bless the way people have said, "Oh, why are you cheering for this empty net goal?" It wasn't that. Just watch how he duped Kieran Dewsbury-Hall in a way that kind of ended Kieran. Look at Kieran Dewsbury-Hall's reaction in that moment, just flinging himself back onto the floor in anger and disbelief. Pickford was behind the kid. And so this was probably what was most beautiful about it. Max Dowman had 3-4 seconds with that empty goal in front of him, no one to stop him. He would have been able to think what would have flooded his head as he knew what was about to happen. And he slotted home, ran off, kicked the corner flag, the noise, the release. What a moment. I mean, I'm a horrible person. I support Everton, but my God, even I could sense the marvel at this kid, a tween. Again, 16 years, 73 days. I said at the top, like a footballing Haley Joel Osment. When I was 16, I was watching football. He was on the field in the biggest game, in the biggest moment, bending it to his will, Raw, against growing human beings, growing men. I mean, Max Dowman, too young to drive, too young to vote, but not too young to break my heart.
I think if that's me in that situation, what's going through my head is purely, I hope I don't fall over. That is the difference between me and Max Dowman, is that he would have been thinking, this is great, I'm in a straw, and I'd have been thinking, I've forgotten how to run. How do you run? What are your legs meant to do?
How am I doing this? Is that
how am I doing this?
How, like, technically, physically, what's keeping me up? Is that
I
what
reckon,
you would have asked?
I reckon I missed.
Down. You would have looked down. You would have looked at the high wire.
Yeah, I reckon I would have missed. I think in that situation, I think the pressure is almost too much. It would be easier maybe to have your first goal as like an instinctive finish where you just stick a leg out rather than having all that time to think about it.
By the way, my Arsenal supporting friend Michael Cohen, 3 Arteta interviews ago, he texted me and said, Oscar Arteta, how good Max Dowman is and when he's going to... Dowman, by the way, was 14 at the time. We've heard for a long time, you're right.
And he is supposed to be a generational talent. And I think the way that Arteta's handled him this season has been really smart. Arteta has brought through a couple of other young players in his time at Arsenal, in Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly. He's prepared to trust in youth, I think. To an extent, his main priority is to win football matches and to win titles. Dowman, he brought in... It was almost like they got that first flush of coverage and excitement and kind of scrutiny out of the way in the summer when Dowman was kind of in the matchday squad and he kind of came on for a bit. And then they took him completely out of the firing line over the winter. He's not played in the Premier League, like, as you say, since August. Part of that is injury, but part of that is that they've not wanted to rush him, and I think that's really important. So that now he can come back in, and he looks comfortable. He doesn't look like an overawed kid in any way, which is partly to do with his talent, obviously, but it's also to do, I think, with the way that Arteta's handled him.
Max Dowman just trying on to become the youngest Premier League goal scorer of his time. Incredibly. I mean, it was reminiscent of Wayne Rooney. I'll get back to that, trotting on against the Arsenal 23, 24 years ago. And just as poetically beautiful, Moyes was a manager at both games, which is incredible. Also incredible is his desire, his confidence to finish. Martinelli was right there. You know, I would say 99.99% of young players would defer, withdraw the defenders, you know, and slot the ball to have that confidence to go all the way is what separates him, the good from the potentially great. When I was 16, I was watching football on the terraces. I was dreaming. I said this post-game, having grown men roll up their programmes behind me and urinate on the back of my legs through that programme. Pommy feels a little bit sorry for Max Dowman. He'll never have that experience.
I think he'll survive without.
You do?
I mean, mind you say that, Roger. I don't know what the hazing rituals are like at Arsenal. That might be one of them.
Oh, that is amazing. God bless. That's Ben White's music. By the way, Alex Dropoles in our Insta said, Max Dowman, the youngest footballer to get a statue. Get it done. I mean, these are amazing. Part of it is just like now, the night to day noise around this kid. I think, was it John Terry who immediately, on social media, immediately compared the way he glides to Lionel Messi. Much too early. I mean, you've talked about it. You mentioned Miles Lewis-Skelly. This time last year, I remember interviewing him with Declan Rice. There was just talks of how he could do things that at that age you just do not see in football. Football is hard. Football is incredibly difficult. Consistency in football. Let's just say football is littered with prodigies who burn bright. And I'm not saying Max Dowman will not soar, and we could be seeing the birth of a true great. But also, I remember Federico Macheda netted a stunning 93rd minute winner for Manchester United. I think that was on his debut, 2008-2009, in the crucible of a title race, and was barely heard of again. Those are not the only two options. And God bless, Max Dowman seems to have a really smart team around him. But how he handles this moment, handles this fame, handles, like, for the rest of his young being on the streets of North London, just life is irrevocably different after what he did this weekend. How he reacts to it raw. Also, how he reacts to the moments of fallow periods of failure too. That's going to define him.
Yeah, I think the key thing is to remember that he's strawed in the Premier League. He's the youngest strawer, but that isn't the end of his kind of period as a young player. He's only just 16. It's not just kind of what happens for the rest of this season. It's next season as well, probably the season after that, and maybe the season after that before he's kind of an age where you think, okay, he is 19, 20, he's kind of, not reaching his peak necessarily, but he's kind of an age where lots and lots of players who would be expected to kind of be making an impact on the first team, he's way ahead of schedule. As you say, he's got to deal with kind of the bits where things don't go quite so right for him. That's a challenge. To an extent, fulfilling your potential, and he's got so much potential, is about luck. Does he avoid injury? Does he end up in an Arsenal team where the other parts don't fit around him necessarily, or is there a summer in 2028 when Arsenal buy badly and suddenly things go wrong? There's all these things that his career is contingent upon, and I think we have to, right at the start of that process, we have to remember that, yeah, he might remind you of Lionel Messi with the way he glides. He might remind you of Wayne Rooney with how he kind of makes this instant impact, how unfazed he is by playing amongst kind of grown adults. But to achieve what they achieved isn't just about his ability, it's about everything around him as well. We've seen loads and loads of players come through young and not make it, or not make it in the way that we expected. We shouldn't hold the ones who've ended up just having really, really good careers playing for the 8th best team in the Premier League. We shouldn't hold them as failures in any way. Was Harry Wilson a failure? No, that's an amazing career to have. But to get from that to what kind of people are talking about with Dowman, that requires all the attributes that we think he might have, but it also requires lots and lots of stuff to go for you as well that you can't control.
What he did do was create incredible global collective joy in a remarkable way. More than that, creating an utter mood change in that stadium. For Arsenal fans, 89 minutes of screaming into the abyss. And then those beautiful, blissful seconds of walking on sunshine. Arsenal fans celebrated the way they do, chanting boring, boring Arsenal, full-throatedly, joyously. I immediately exchanged texts with the quite incredible Arseblog, who said, I think we just witnessed some long overdue revenge for 16-year-old Wayne Rooney scoring that goal against us. And I was like, in my head, I was like, my God, this is football. This is what it does to us. This moment of epiphany. And heads are also in a moment 23, 24 years ago, when a child of our own played and scored against the invincible Arsenal to become one of the youngest goal scorers of all time. And I marvelled in that moment, Raw, just how much, like, even in times of bliss, the echoes of the past, the pain, the traumas of the past still seep through. It's hilarious and wonderful.
Yeah, I noticed a bit of that on social media as well, because it's such a purely joyous story. I was really surprised to see like Arsenal fans using it, and again, fans of all of the clubs would do this, to use it as a way of saying, well, they'll be criticising us for playing teenagers next. And you think leave that for tomorrow. Just enjoy this bit. Like, stop thinking about kind of the haters and the haters and the critics immediately. Like, no one thinks that. No one is saying that.
Is that the new one? Child sweatshop F?
Yeah, like, this should be... They're playing players who are too young. This should be banned. But it's stuff that you're making up to... It's the equivalent, Rog, and I always find it amazing. I don't want to sound snobby. But when a goal is scored at any ground, 90% of fans will jump up and cheer, and they'll hug the person sitting next to them. And 10% of them will turn to the away fans and swear. And I've never understood that is your immediate reaction. It should always be your second reaction. But it shouldn't be your immediate one. And it felt a little bit like that you have this moment of pure wonder, really, of a 16-year-old kid scoring a goal. you don't need, let's not pretend that hypothetically some people are criticising your club for it. That's just a bit too negative for me.
I think the percentages are a bit off. I think at least 30% of,
I might be being generous,
of football fans' impulse, and anything happens is to instantly make a wanker sign.
Yeah.
Just genuinely a wanker sign at the world. But my God, it was magnificent. I'm a horrible person. It was scored on my team, and I thought it was like genuinely, poetically, magically, and in context for Arsenal fans. I think I've wondered that they will remember. I hope they'll remember for decades. By the way, my mind did go to this real quickly. We learned that Arsenal set piece coach gets a bonus for every goal they score off a corner. Do you think he gets his dough for Dowman's goal? New way to be set piece FC.
It did come from a set piece. I'm sure Nicholas Jove will be having that debate with Arteta. Well, actually, Mikel, that one was on me as well.
Pay the man. We had Matthew Benham on, the Brentford owner, and we were talking on stage about when Brentford scored those 3 goals off kickoffs. And he said their set-piece coach claimed his bonus for those, and they actually had an argument about whether they could count. And
what's the argument?
Because the kickoff happened and then there was play. Did it come really off the kickoff? I was like, God, you didn't pay him, did he? He said he did pay him. So pay the man. Give Nicholas Jove his dough. Last Premier League table for 4 weeks for Arsenal. 9 points clear. Goal difference. 7 up on Manchester City. I just say, watching Mikel Arteta at full time run towards the Arsenal faithful and do his version of the Klopp punching fist thing, the 3 times kind of very Kloppy style. Raw. He knows that they've won the league there.
He wouldn't have known then, I think, because it was still contingent on City, wasn't it? That if City had won, then suddenly everything was a little bit more in the balance. But Arteta must be at the stage now where he is ticking off the obstacles that he has cleared. That he will know that Arsenal keep finding a way. And ultimately, look, when you've not won a title for 22 years, the running is not going to be full of 5-0 victories where you look like Brazil 1970. It's going to be really tight, it's going to be really nervous, and sometimes you're going to hope and sometimes you're going to have to hope that your giant, expensive Swedish striker taps one in from on the goal line, because that is the way you break teams down.
God bless. I've got to tell you, we'll chat more about it. I think it's humanly incredible in the face of all that hate, all that demeanour, all that laugh, pickpockets to rise up and get it done. Carabao Cup next weekend, Arsenal City, delicious timing, well done script writers. And talking to City, West Ham won, Manchester City won. And so we wondered, could Manchester City hold serve? We also wondered, what did Valverde's first half 22-minute hat-trick do to Pep Guardiola's ego and Manchester City's season? Into the Bubble Dome, a place where Pep had saved 7 wins and 2 draws. But West Ham have been pugnacious. However, in a title chase down the stretch, we are used to Manchester City. We're used to Pep Guardiola just ruthlessly extracting victory, almost relentlessly by right raw. Pep suspended, up in the rafters of this one. He was on the phone the whole game. He said his team were, quote, desperate for all 3 points, and they opened by hemming the Hammers into their own final third. And on the half hour, the breakthrough, Bernardo Silva on the sideline. We expected him to chip one up for Big Earl to try and lob City home, but instead the ball span over a flailing Hermansen. Questions about Bernardo Silva's intentions here, Raw. The ball span up admittedly higher than the Mondo Duplantis. Did he mean it?
I think the better question is, did he not mean it? I sometimes think with those, it's kind of if you there's a lot of dead balls, a lot of crosses, where I think players are thinking, if I put this in the area where someone might get a touch, or it might go in the corner, then that's the ideal.
Bernardo Silva is that guy. One of the few in the league who would think that he has the ability, the control to pull off that beauty. I'd like to let myself believe that he meant it. But this 2026 City, they're honestly the shadow of that kind of Guardiola ideal of invincibility and inevitability. They're almost self-destructive urge. It normally happens in second halves, Raw. They flung away a 2-0 lead against bloody Tottenham, flung away a pair of leads against Forest, 1-0 leads against Brighton, and Chelsea also. They normally, as I say, wilt in the second half. Here they only had to wait, was it 3 minutes and 42 seconds before a Jared Bowen corner. We've got to say Donnarumma, God bless, nowhere near it, befuddled. by the English crosses. And scriptwriter said, yes, you, ex-Arsenal defender Mavropanos, a man who hadn't scored, I think, in nearly 4 years. It had to be him, smashing a header in off the underside of the bar. Once a gooner, ... Raw City. 15 drop points from winning positions this season. That's an incredible sentence. 15 City drop points from winning positions. Arsenal, by contrast, I think just 9 points from the similar. To me, that's the story of the season, and it's kind of unfathomable.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's basically, if you take out the game in hand, that is basically the difference between them, isn't it? That City never look absolutely sure of having a win. And I think in a way that's indicative of the lead as it's been this season more broadly. But it's also because they're not the City that they were. They're not the City of old. I don't want to give you too much credit, Rog, but you have been saying that consistently, that there's been this like expectation that they're going to go on a run of 10 wins in a row, but there's no real evidence for it. There hasn't been any evidence that is about to happen at any point this season. And the other thing is that a lot of it depends on when you run into teams. West Ham have got a little bit of momentum behind them. You know, they've got a bit of spirit. They look like they might stay up. They're absolutely in the race with Forest and with Spurs. As soon as they got that goal, West Ham had something to hang on to, and that makes them quite difficult opponents. And this City, quite often when they're faced with teams in that situation, don't quite find a way to win.
Yeah, they toiled in this one for the rest of the game. Watching Erling Haaland flounder against West Ham's back five. I think just 4 goals. Is it 18 of his last games now? It's quite astonishing. It's like, thinking about Samson post-haircut. He had a one-on-one. He went low. It was pumped past the post quite excellently by Hermansen. An hour into the game, City had only had 2 shots on target. He had Pep writhing in agony on his seat on the phone. There was a beautiful comment. We all thought it was just tactical instructions. At T. Cook in the MiB Discord said Pep is actually just calling in a correction to this morning's La Vanguardia crossword puzzle that had been bothering him all bloody day. Down the stretch, the moment, Mavropanos, truly a moment of wonder, through his face in front of a Haaland pile driver in stoppage time. Raw, the imprint of the ball on his face, the way it was like half ball just muffed up against half Mavropanos, half ball. It's like watching a cartoon anvil drop on a character in an old school movie on Roadrunner.
This is what they invented ultra slow motion HD cameras for, isn't it? That exact moment. That's what you want. That's what we're paying our money to see.
What, for the ball to there's a classic of Fellaini where it's like Fellaini's face just...
exactly. You want the ball squished up and the face like splayed out to the one side. That's what you want.
Oh my God. By the way, John Terry, who was so quick to comment on Max Dowman, I'm amazed he didn't chime in there because, as I've said a number of times, and I love it, I watched him train the Aston Villa centre-backs when he was briefly their assistant coach under Dean Smith, and it consisted of him just whacking the ball from close range at the centre-backs, just say, we take the ball in our balls, we take it in the face. And I thought about that when Mavropanos, just with great delight. At the death, Mark Gahey had a shot over the bar from 6 yards, and that was it. Nuno, God bless him, managed Wolves, Forest, Spurs, all the relegation rivals. He seems hell-bent on getting vengeance in like a Liam Neeson-y way. And you can tell how seething Pep was post-game just by how joyous he tried to be in his post-game interview, how much he loved to be in the stands, how terrific his squad was, how pleased he was by the performance. Perhaps most oddly of all, when asked about a possible Haaland groin injury, he said, this is his words, hopefully his wife will be happy tonight. I don't know. What are we looking at, Raw, here? Between Pep not wanting to leave City on such kind of like a meat beta note, and Pep, I once asked him this, how he, one man with one voice, one, ultimately set of tactical commands, speaking to many of the same players over and over, with that same voice, just being turned to white noise and tuned out, which happens, he admitted, to every single manager at a certain point.
It does, but to be fair, they've kind of rebuilt the squad over the last year. There's a lot of players there who haven't had that much exposure to Pep. I'm sure, someone like Bernardo Silva has heard quite a lot of it before, having been there for almost 10 years. But Semenyo, Gay, Marmoush, Kusanov, a lot of players have arrived at City in the last year. And I wonder whether, to an extent, that's almost part of the broader problem, that this is a team in transition. It's a team that has got an awful lot of new parts and that he's still building something. But I'm the same as you, Rog. I've thought all season long that if City won the Premier League or the Champions League, or both, then Guardiola would walk, because that would be the perfect way to say goodbye. And if you look at Alex Ferguson when he was at Manchester United, I was thinking about this morning actually, Fergie wanted to leave in 2012. That's when he kind of earmarked for his departure. And then Manchester City go and nicked the title from United on the last day, the Aguero goal. And Fergie, because he's been there for so long, he gets to decide, says, right, I'm going to stay another year. I'll sign Robin van Persie. Off I go. I will win the league and I will get my golden farewell. I think that's what Guardiola wants. I think that's probably what Guardiola deserves, given everything he's done for City, everything he's done for English football. But as things stand, I mean, if they get an early goal against Real Madrid, maybe. But the Premier League's pretty much gone. Barring a miracle, the Champions League's gone. I don't know if he would want to walk away, even with an FA Cup, Carabao Cup double. Would that be enough for him? Maybe not. But does he want to do another year? And to be honest, if you listen to everything he says, he might still do another year, but it's really hard to believe that his heart's in it, to be perfectly honest.
And a brutal run of games to come. Got to acknowledge this. Real Madrid second leg midweek. Arsenal in the Carabao Cup final at the weekend. Then Liverpool in the FA Cup. By the way, no favours in that draw. Arsenal get Southampton. City get Liverpool. Then they have Chelsea in the Premier League. Then that doomsday clash against Arsenal in the league. To the other side of Manchester, United 3. Aston Villa 1. Third welcoming fourth in a test of truth. Michael Carrick had 11 long days to mull over his first loss as Manchester United manager, that late 2-1 wilt at Newcastle. You wouldn't have known it in that very forgettable first half, just one shot on target. Maybe a result, you could say, of the rust that kind of tarnishes a team when they're out for that long. United came alive in the second. Bruno Fernandes, as he so often has this season, just upped his intensity, started to enforce his ideas on the game, charging downfield, cutting Villa apart with truly deliciously incisive passing. Opening goal came 51 minutes in, wonderfully worked corner. Casemiro losing his marker, guiding a near post header, far post. 7th goal of the season. For a man we were told should leave the football before the football leaves you. What I love most about football is that it always reminds us, Rod, the basic human life truth. We know nothing.
Absolutely. And as you say, Casemiro, for quite a lot of his Manchester United career, looked like he was a tribute act to himself. But under... Well, look, there's two ways of looking at this, isn't there? One of them's quite cynical and one of them's quite positive. The positive one is that Michael Carrick, who's played in a similar position to Casemiro, has understood how to get the best out of Casemiro. The more realistic one is that Casemiro is now playing football about twice a month, and that maybe suits him at this stage in his career. Because United have got such an easy schedule. You know, they play Bournemouth on Friday, then they don't play again for 24 days or something. They hadn't played for 11 coming into this. They are the only team, really, of those elite group who are not totally overworked. And that means that Casemiro, who is in the autumn of his career now, who has achieved a huge amount for many, many years, maybe he's got the energy in his legs, the kind of freshness, to play somewhere close to what he was for Real Madrid. And United are reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big on badge kissing. I thought it was really beautiful, actually, when he scored and he ran there. Yeah, he did the 6-7, but then just like kissing his badge, addressing the United fan base, the one more year demand humanly, as well as footballing. It's magnificent to see. As has been, by the way, Villa, who have been tenacious when they've gone behind this season. 19 points clean from losing positions, and United led for just 11 minutes after Unai Emery threw on a host of attacking footballers. Tammy Abraham, Leon Bailey. There's like a poker player going all in. A Villa goal, forged in Goodison Park. Ross Barkley slapping home, narrowly missing Onana's ample offside buttocks. But that wouldn't last. Bruno gained his club record single season assist record, passing David Beckham, it should be said, with 16. I think it was his 100th assist to boot to free Cunha, who lashed home ruthlessly on the break. By the way, another United player scoring and grabbing his badge in that moment, which again, I was like, yeah. When I watch these players, it's almost like a reflection. Again, this is projection, but it's a reflection of a club-first collective spirit, a culture that Carrick's clearly trying to build there, as opposed to what we've seen over the last 10, 11 years. And then Šeško trotted on. I remember when we were all laughing at him. He went hips don't lie to spin round lash home. Was it his 10th goal of this season. Raw, so much Manchester United joy in one half, so many players who've just had their levels raised.
It's really hard to make a case that Carrick hasn't had a massive impact. I do think he's been helped by how little they have to play. You know, he's got that rarest of things, which is time on the training ground. Nobody else has that. The teams around United don't have that. But he has, like you say, I think that the main thing is they look like they're together. They, for the first time in years and years and years, they look like there is a kind of communal spirit and identity and ambition at Manchester United. And, you know, they're only 6 points off City, Rog.
I thought this is an amazingly massive win in this moment, and I'm fascinated by the reaction, Raw. I do need to ask you this. The ex-United pundocracy almost divided on Carrick's future. Wayne Rooney has said Michael Carrick should be given the manager's job permanently. Roy Keane on Sky Sports called on the club to go and appoint the biggest manager they can. By the way, credit Sky. I think was it Jamie Redknapp in the studio immediately pointed out they've tried that before with Van Gaal back in 2014. Jose Mourinho in his day. Here's the truth, Raw. To me, 2 months ago, Manchester United were 11 points behind Aston Villa. After yesterday, they are 3 points clear in third place. Just an incredible transition. And again, so much joy. It almost is moving into a realm where it feels reckless to remove Carrick from his kind of Sade levels of smooth operating at the club. Carrick won every home game. To me, looks more and more like possession is 9/10 of the law when it comes to becoming permanent manager.
I think there's two things, isn't there? One is I get Roy Keane's position, which is if Luis Enrique is available, can you get Luis Enrique? Is he more of a surefire thing than Michael Carrick? Probably yes. But then is Luis Enrique available? If Luis Enrique is available, will he come to Manchester United? You don't know the answer to either of those questions. Short of appointing him, I'm not sure there's a candidate out there that makes more sense than Carrick. Carrick has done nothing wrong. He's done everything asked of him. The players are clearly responding to him. The fans love him. And you know what? As much as the argument against him is, well, they tried it with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and it didn't work, it kind of did work for a bit with Solskjaer. And also, Carrick and Solskjaer aren't the same person. It might be that Carrick is more tactically astute than Solskjaer. Maybe he's got more gears to go through than Solskjaer. But also, we've seen, this is a bit of a kind of weird argument to make, but we've seen that this is a lead of fine margins, right? You know, it's a set-piece lead, it's a bounce of the ball lead. Why is that kind of romance, why couldn't that be a factor too? That sense of purpose that comes from having a figurehead who the fans adore. We know that managers aren't as powerful as they used to be. We know that they don't get to do recruitment and they don't get to do this and they don't get to do that. They are, to an extent, very well-paid mascots. Especially when they don't have time on the training field, which next season Michael Carrick won't, because he'll be in the Champions League. So why not make the mascot someone that everyone really likes to see? That makes sense. That to me has a genuine sporting logic behind it.
Make it sound like Arsenal's next manager is just going to be Win the Dog. Which,
give it Dunosaurus.
That's the Villa. No, just one win. In 7 through Unai Emery. Just 1 point from the last 4 games. At Black Capricorn in our Men in Blazers Discord wrote, I don't believe any team will finish 5th in the Premier League this year. It's like hotels that don't have a 13th floor.
It is not the greatest recommendation for the Premier League's chasing pack, Rog, that Villa have now lost 3 in a row and they're still 4th. I'm not sure how many seasons that could have been true in.
Elsewhere in that fierce battle for Europe, trademark to Chelsea. Chelsea 0, Newcastle United 1. 2 teams coming into this with let's just say the bitter aftertaste of the backwash of Champions League midweek disappointment. Chelsea's self-inflicted. Liam Rosenior's big decision to play keeper Philip Jorgensen backfired spectacularly. Q Rosenior revealing Friday Jorgensen wouldn't be in the squad this weekend because of a groin issue. Godspeed, get well soon, / how convenient. Robert Sanchez, the old, slightly erratic former starter, returned to the starting lineup, but this is football, Raw, and we don't watch football to talk about the football. We watch to discuss what turned out to be the moment of the match. Indeed, the moment of my entire weekend, Raw. Seconds before kick-off, the Chelsea starters formed their recent pre-match tradition of huddling exactly in the centre circle. Referee Paul Tierney, however, refused to leave his spot in the middle of the field. And so the players completely surrounded the poor gent. You see Cole Palmer actually hugged the man for a second. The referee left desperately looking at the camera as if he was Jim Halpert in the office, birthing a million memes instantly live. Raw, can you just explain to us what in the manosphere is the Chelsea performance coach marginal gains bad thinking going on in his head?
No, I can't, Rog. I've got no idea what this is about. Something to do with claiming territory and respecting the ball?
Yeah.
Seems to be Liam Rosenior's possibly reverse-engineered explanation for it. But how that situation arises, I have no idea. I don't even know who to blame for it, Rog. Whose fault is it?
Yeah, I mean, you're actually quoting Paul Liam Rosenior, who was asked to explain post-game, and let's just say he didn't really help himself, let's say, escape the allegations. He did say, my players made a decision. They wanted to be around the ball, to respect the ball, which is mind-blowing. He threw it on the players. But the crazy thing is, Rosenior also said that his assistant spoke to the referee, Tierney, before the game and talked about this very moment. So it was very premeditated on both sides. Chelsea's and the official.
Fine people on both sides, yeah.
Yeah. Unfine people. Liam said post-game, I'm disappointed. There's more focus and emphasis on the things that don't matter. So, Raw, if it doesn't matter, why could they possibly be doing it?
Yeah, and but also there was a little bit of a move from Rossini to blame the referee, which I think is not on, really. It strikes me... I don't think... I mean... To be honest, Roger, I've got no idea. I don't think they will have done it as a way to kind of intimidate the referee or a way to ingratiate themselves with the referee. I don't think there's anything like that involved. It was a deeply weird moment. The Premier League throws these up every so often. These moments where you think, hang on, this is football jumping the shark. Like, this is now a sort of deliberately strange moment.
What comes close to this, Ro? I mean, I would not have been more shocked if Liam had not been watching the New Zealand rugby team do the haka and then decided Chelsea should do the haka pre-game. I mean, they have hired a former rugby league star, Willie Issa, as their mentality and performance coach. It does feel like that marginal edge kind of stuff comes from that.
But surely it can't be, like, incorporating the referee in your pre-match routine can't be a deliberate thing. It was just that they kind of had an idea in their heads and they refused to shift when they realised there was a guy there. And I mean, I can respect, as a middle-aged man, I can respect not wanting to change my plans. I get that. Like, I get that completely. I'm doing this.
Yeah,
and this is non-negotiable.
I'm not going to change. I'm at an age. I'm not going to change. But this is crazy. You think it is like they have so many red cards? They've got this plan. Let's intimidate the referee. Let's send a message to the referee before he sends a message to us. If you know what I mean.
But I kind of read it more as a kind of let's show him we're nice guys. Maybe he won't want to send us off if he thinks we're nice guys. So we've invited him into our huddle.
Let's cuddle like the Wiggles.
Yeah, like let's make this a nice, like, tender moment. But I have no idea.
Wow.
There are...
We've got it all wrong. It wasn't intimidation. It was putting more love out into the world.
It was sending good vibes out. Yeah.
Oh, mate. If it was intimidation, Liam, what's wrong with the old-fashioned horse's head in the bed? You know what I mean? In less public ways. By the way, knowing Liam Rosenior, he's probably like, if you split the English word huddle into its root, you get huh and dull. And that's ultimately what it turned out to be. Anyway, Chelsea showed slightly less respect for the ball. 18th minute, if someone had only considered marking Newcastle's attackers with the same vigour they did Tierney pre-game. Newcastle, I think a move that involved 10 of their 11 outfield players, not you, Nick Voltemada. Zero pressure, has to be said, as Tino Livramento sprung Joe Willock, charged up the gut. Anthony Gordon sprinted right past Fofana, finished with ease. 60th goal on the season for Anthony Gordon, but also just his second Premier League goal from open play in the last 14 months. That stat plucked straight from every single Everton fan's mouth. And from there, it was just like bad Chelsea motif of the season, greatest hits, sloppiness individually, lack of tenacity mentally, inability to break through a deep block, booed off at half-time. Second half, an agony watching $40 million misfit Liam Delap just lumber around like a 12-year-old whose growth plates is growing in and he can't quite control his limbs. I think he's netted once in 21 Premier League appearances, blew a golden chance, which just led to complete and utter agita. And hark, Newcastle win their first league game at Stamford Bridge in 14 years, just the second victory there in 40. They've been terrible on the road, but here they win. They jump from 13th up to 9th. Trip to Catalonia loading. Chelsea and the weekend in 6th. A point behind Liverpool. This is a real blow to Champions League dreams. Raw, we've said long that the Rosenior project, which is results-wise in the Premier League been quite bloody good, that 6-year contract until 2032, bold gambit would be judged in a time of challenge. You got the draws to Burnley and Leeds, the loss to Arsenal, that's understandable. The PSG 5-2 beatdown is a darkness, and now this. We're firmly in the time of challenge, aren't we?
We are. I don't think there's any risk of Rosenior being sacked any time in the near future, but yeah, I think we're maybe starting to see the limitations of the model again in terms of the very young, very expensive squad that's just a little bit short of where it needs to be. And then a manager who is clearly very bright, clearly very talented, but yeah, that's 2 big games that he's lost. A missed opportunity for Chelsea, just as it was for Liverpool this weekend, to be honest, with Man United and Villa playing each other. This was a chance to make up ground, to stake a claim. They didn't do it against a Newcastle team who, to be honest, will also have... they're distracted as well. They've got to go to Barcelona. They have more chance of going through in the Champions League than Chelsea do. That is not a good result for Rosenior, and I think the big issue for him will be if Chelsea miss out on the Champions League. The good news, Rog, is that Liverpool are incompetent, so they might not do.
The agony compounded for Chelsea fans post-game when 2 Newcastle players, Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento, yucked it up on social media together. 2 ex-Chelsea young ones who got away. After Tuesday's Champions League tilt, Chelsea have a little matter of Everton Football Club next Saturday. God bless, at the Big Dick though. Against a man who knows something about the aura of a hotel beer or two. David Moyes, he's our guest on YouTube on Thursday. It's quite a magical interview. I believe it will fire you up. I'd say roll on Saturday. Actually, don't roll on Saturday. In other games, Burnley 0, Bournemouth 0. Good news for Bournemouth. No team is on a longer unbeaten run in the Premier League than their 10. Bad news, 6 draws in there since they let Antoine Semenyo go. Roy, if your manager, Andoni Iraola, truly brilliant tactical mind, truly great culture builder, man manager, you saw what happened to Thomas Frank when he went to a bigger club, to Tottenham Hotspur, or countless men before you have been sucked into the vortex at Manchester United. Your contract's up at the end of the season. You've probably faced another squad refresh at Bournemouth. Do you stay where you control your world, or do you think my reputation can't get better here than it currently is? I'm going to bounce.
It's a big question, Rog. I suspect that what you'll do is look at what happened to Thomas Frank at Tottenham in particular and think, I have to make the right choice. Like, this isn't just a case of, I've done it at this level, I will be able to do it at the next level, wherever that might be. It teaches you that you have to make that call very judiciously. And to be honest, with these things, it always comes down to what's available and how attractive it is. So would Spurs tempt Iraola? Maybe. I think they definitely like him. They definitely want him. It's a much bigger club. It's, obviously more money to spend, much more appealing than Bournemouth in terms of the calibre of players you can attract. But equally, they are 16th in the Premier League, so it's a bit of a rebuild. Manchester United, 3rd, if that comes up. Liverpool, 5th, if that comes up. I wonder if it means Iraola's just a little bit more cagey about leaving, because the grass is not, as Frank has seen, always greener.
I want to quickly toast Bournemouth, raise my 3rd first Michelob Ultra of the day to Michael B. Jordan, who with his Best Actor Oscar became the first ever Premier League co-owner to win an Academy Award. Michael Jordan's been a minority owner of the Cherry since the club came under American Bill Foley's ownership back in 2022. Raw, how many clubs can say they got an Oscar in the trophy?
Rog, there must be a few Oscar winners among celebrity fans.
Ferrell's never won an Oscar. How's Ferrell never won an Oscar?
What about Hathaway?
Hathaway just spiritually owns a piece of Arsenal, I think. Elton John, a couple of Grammys slapped into the Watford trophy room. Did Sylvester Stallone? I'm now spiritually claiming Sylvester Stallone as an Everton owner. Did he win any? Has he won any? How has he not won any Oscars?
I don't want to answer that question. I'm quite frightened of him.
God bless Michael Jordan, also the best quarterback in East Dillon. Back to the other football. Sunderland 0, Brighton 1. 2 teams who've totally face-swapped form in the past month. Brighton suddenly ripped off, I think, 3 wins in the last 4. Sunderland, I'm old enough to remember when they were invincible at home. This was their third consecutive loss in front of the home crowd. Brighton's first win there in 45 years. I think they played 10, 11 times. They've hardly been in the same division. But God bless Sunderland. Squad worn down by injuries. Well played Premier League scriptwriters. Tyne and Weir Derby charging towards us on Sunday. Crystal Palace 0, Leeds United 0. A madness at the end of the first half. Dominic Calvert-Lewin stepped up to take a penalty, 45th minute. Palace clearly looking down the barrel of a gun. But then it misfired. Poor DCL fired past the left post. And then within seconds, Leeds Goodmanson got a second yellow card after Sarr. God bless. If you've not seen this, watch this. Sarr has to remind the official that it was Goodmanson's second card. Sarr. It only rhymes with VAR, but it's much more effective.
Yeah, question marks over the sportsmanship there, to be honest. I mean, we all like someone enforcing the rules. We all like someone who's keeping an eye on the parking permits, who's making sure that the bins have been put out in the right
Making sure
place.
the teacher gives out the homework.
Exactly. Do we want to encourage that behaviour in our children? It's funny, isn't it, when like players dive or they argue or they over celebrate, you always hear that kind of sense of that Mrs. Lovejoy, like, won't someone think of the children thing. But when someone's been a narc, you don't get it nearly as much, but you probably should.
I had the opposite. I was like, just let SAR instead of VAR just rule on everything from now on.
It would be more effective.
Yeah,
it would be more. In fact,
VAR, we don't like VAR, we do like SAR.
Exactly. SAR might catch on more.
Yeah, like instant. Just like he's on it. Let him just make all the bloody decisions. By the way, the dullness of this game reflected in the stat. This is incredible. Leeds became the only team on record to have a player sent off in the first half, yet not concede a single shot on target in the game. This is like a musical festival of goalless draws. Nottingham Forest 0, Fulham 0. Truly forgettable game. Fulham's third straight blank. Forest struggling oddly to proceed in Europe. Yay! But they're 1-0 down in the first leg of the Europa League clash against Michelin. And also to stave off relegation at the very same time. Vitor Pereira, games coming every 3 days right now, still waiting for his first Premier League victory this campaign. Only goal difference, keeping Forest above West Ham in that life and death line above the relegation zone. Call it raw. Who's going to go down?
It's too close to call at this stage, Rod. I'm not going to stick my neck out. But what I will say is I think that was a really bad result for Forest. On a weekend where West Ham had Man City and Tottenham went to Liverpool, Forest were playing a team in Fulham who are 11th, who've got nothing to play for, at home. At this stage of the season, that is what you want in your fixtures. The league table isn't really relevant in that way anymore. It's not about who's highest or lowest, it's who's got what at stake. Fulham have nothing except their own tremendous pride at stake. For Forest to not pick up a win there is a real missed opportunity.
God, I've got to tell you, I'm still just not used to a relegation battle without Everton being in it. I remember that pain, I know the trauma, I know what you're all experiencing, and God, I just wish you all strength. At a certain point, I think they're just going to decide only one team goes down this season. It's Tottenham Hotspur. Brentford host, talking about relegation, Wolves this afternoon. So let's dive in to a letter from our mailbag, which overfloweth this week. menandblazer@gmail.com. Raw. It's Oscar themed from one Daniel Jones. You didn't say if you are the Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. I'm going to imagine you are, but irrespective, Raw, do the honours.
There's loads of Danny Joneses it could be. It could be Danny Jones from the boy band Busted or McFly, can't remember which one. Could be the Danny Jones who played rugby league for the Keighley Tudors. There's lots of Danny Joneses.
I went to school with a Danny Jones who was actually the son of a minor folk star in England. And I do remember him because he got suspended from school for stealing the school synthesizer. He was the only person with the key to the school music room. He threw a brick through the window to make it look like it was a robbery, but he threw the brick from the inside out, which was just amazing. God bless Danny Jones.
Was he hoping he'd get away with it because as the son of a folk star, he wouldn't want a synthesizer?
I don't know what it was. That's amazing. Yes, when he was cornered, he goes, "I don't believe in going electric."
I'm not going electric. My dad'd kill me. Greetings from Kayenta, Arizona. I don't know if I'm saying Kayenta right. That's how I'd say it. I might be wrong. I apologise. In honour of the Academy Awards, there has been an explosion of soccer streaming documentary series or films over the past several years. My favourite one is a 2013 German film with English subtitles called Trainer. It follows three managers developing their craft over a season in the lower divisions of the German leagues. That sounds quite good.
Yeah.
The most compelling figure is Frank Schmidt at Heidenheim, who through a labour of love over 10 years miraculously got them promoted to the Bundesliga. My runner-up would go to a 2021 Netflix film called Il Divin Codino, or The Divine Ponytail, the docudrama about the career of Roberto Baggio, focusing on his early career at Fiorentina, the 1994 World Cup, and his final few seasons at Brescia. I wanted to ask, what would be your choices for the Academy Award for Best Soccer Film or Series, if there was such a category? Courage, Danny Jones, but not that one.
Maybe it is that one. Either one.
Who knows?
The quarterback or the synth stealer. Raw, it's such a good question, irrespective. The truth is, Premier League football is now shot from so many angles and overflowing with so much bloody narrative. Just the fraught huddles, the VAR suspense, the comedy of managers mistaking random bald men on the sideline for their opposition manager. You can always say fictional versions have rarely been able to capture just the true emotional wonder that we get on a weekly basis. We actually once had Guy Ritchie on this show and he complained about how few good football movies there's been. Raw, dive on it. Do the honours.
Yeah, well, in terms of documentaries, there's loads. I mean, the Fido one is fantastic. All of the Asif Kapadia films are great. Maradona, Dalglish. There's loads of kind of...
The Two Escobars for a documentary.
Yeah, The Two Escobars is amazing.
Really, really. I think it's now on Netflix. It's just stunning.
Anything along the lines of... anything from the 30 for 30 series that's about soccer is great. Trying to think, the BBC have done a lot of good ones recently. I find my son randomly watching BBC football documentaries, sometimes ones that are largely in Spanish. Most mornings. I don't know whether he can understand what's going on. There's no shortage of good documentaries, but you are right, Rog, that fiction and football has always been really tough. I think for the reasons that you say, that the game itself throws up these storylines in such an organic way that we are, as fans, really good at spotting ersatz versions of it. If I was to nominate a fictional football film, as in a fiction film rather than one that I've just made up, it would be the Sean Bean vehicle, When Saturday Comes.
Oh,
which is great largely because Sean Bean, who is a massive Sheffield United fan, scores a goal for Sheffield United against Manchester United at Bramall Lane. I think they filmed it at half-time in a game, so you have a real crowd there.
It's Ned's start, listeners.
And it does just about pass the test of looking and feeling like real football. Because most of the time when you see fictionalised versions of football... I thought Ted Lasso was good at this, actually. The football itself didn't look particularly unrealistic. Because normally that's where they all fall down. As soon as they start doing anything on the pitch, you can tell it is not real. But in terms of a fictional film, I'd probably say When Saturday Comes, but the pickings are not rich.
Sean Blade famously has the tattoo on his forearm, 100% Blade. For me, listen, Joe, I realise why I've almost gone the other direction, because football is so terribly documented in film. I've almost embraced a couple of films that don't really try and get it right whatsoever. The first, for nostalgic reasons, because so many football fans of a certain age, this shaped their entire life. And remember, we didn't watch much live football back then, so to watch this film on repeat was like genuinely thrilling in between games. I've got to go, it's called Victory in the United States, Escape to Victory in the rest of the world. It's unbelievably directed by the great John Huston, Sylvester Stallone, God bless the Everton, a spiritual owner in my head, in a German POW camp. Like loosely based, I think, on the urban myth of a Second World War death match between the best imprisoned professional footballers from the Allies and the Nazi air defence artillery football team. It's worth watching. Just see Michael Caine and Bobby Moore interchange passes with half of the 1970s Ipswich Town team who stepped up to play extras. Pele, an incredible overhead kick. Galazzo, I don't think that needs a spoiler alert. Stallone, though, so unbelievably cocky as an American goalkeeper, a novice hatch. I love this nugget from production that Stallone reportedly demanded that his character score the winning goal, and it had to be explained several times that even with his great thespian range, a goalkeeper, probably wouldn't be happening. I'd give my Oscar to that movie. It is a total classic, but if you want something a bit defter, Gregory's Girl, and I'm thrilled to say this is free, I think, on the Roku channel. Do you remember Gregory's Girl, Will? It's like
I know of it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, you got to see it. It's a legendary British film of the 1980s. Scottish wonder, created by the cult director Bill Forsyth. Really poetic telling of the relationship between a nerdy goalkeeper and the beautiful female striker who joins his high school team. It is the beautiful combination of football and the rhythms and heartbeats of adolescent angst. Before there was a Max Dowman, there was Gregory's Girl. The movie is Scottish. It's a bit like Train Spotting without the heroine, or more like the film Wes Anderson would have made if he'd grown up in Glasgow, probably wearing a corduroy kilt. God bless him. Find it now. It's on the Roku channel. And that is it, Rob. By the way, according to Wikipedia, Danny Jones is a British musician who was a vocalist and guitarist for the band McFly. Could it be that?
McFly.
Could
it could be that Danny Jones, who is now all over my Instagram. I think Danny Jones might want to sell me something to restore my hairline.
Yeah, he was also part of the supergroup McBusted. God bless. Yeah. Don't do it, Raw. Whatever he tells you about that hairline. But whichever Danny Jones we are, we're so bloody grateful for your letter. Keep writing to us all at meninblazers@gmail.com. Do try and answer every single one that comes in. Want to give huge thanks to Bank of America, official bank of US soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting the Men in Blazers media network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? Quick reminder for listeners in Atlanta, we're coming down to you March 27th for our World Cup countdown show, 76 days out, presented by Bank of America, official bank of US soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026. I'm elated to announce Big Boy. I cannot wait for this. Big Boy is headlining that show. I love that man for his passion about life and football, his city, and owls. Tickets can be found at the link below. Raw, thank you, you beautiful human being.
The mention of owls has confused me, Rog. I won't lie to you.
Oh, I'm going to send you his last appearance on our show because it was absolutely transcendent. I'll be back with Raw post-Champions League games this Wednesday. Come and join us live on YouTube at the final whistle. European Nights drops tomorrow. I'm actually headed to London on Friday. I can't wait to be there. Huge love. This is Rog saying, let's not take a second of watching football together for granted. Encourage.